The mid-range minis don't get much love, so I'm here to take one for the team.
12 seconds later.
Man, that was quite the workout. Minisforum's UM760 Slim is one of the few mini PCs to include a newer gen Ryzen 5 CPU. Why there's such a drought in the mid-range, we can only guess. Maybe there's just not much interest. But the UM760 is a worthy addition to the ever-growing mini PC releases, and we're going to deep dive into it right after this message. The EaseUS Data Recovery Wizard app is very simple to use and can help you recover your lost data, whether it's on your internal drive, USB storage, or SD card. It also has support for repairing damaged photos and videos. Check out the free trial in the video description to find out what it can recover on your storage drives. This is another all-plastic box which is solid everywhere except for the bottom, which creaks and flexes from pressure. Unless you plan to punch it, it's not a problem. Inside is AMD's Ryzen 7640HS, another CPU we haven't looked at yet. This one is 6 cores, 12 threads with AMD's Radeon 760M integrated graphics. Not quite sure what the slim part of the name refers to. Doesn't look like it's gone on a diet to me, but I guess it is slimmer than the UM890. And now I can prove it to you, because this review is the first one to debut the volume chart. Yes, I spent a good chunk of time measuring each one and plonking it into a chart. The UM760 Slim sits right in the middle, while the UM890 takes up more volume. Pricing wise, the Mini comes in at just under $320 on the official website for the 1TB SSD, 16GB DDR5 RAM version. Sadly, no barebones model is available, which is unusual for Minisforum. It's good to see the compact power supply showing up again in the box. There are also a couple of spare rubber feet, HDMI, and a VESA mount. Port-wise, it's nothing fancy. A couple of USB 3 10GB, audio jack, and clear CMOS. While on the back, you've got a Realtek 2.5GB LAN, HDMI 2.1, which Minisforum says supports up to 4K 120Hz, a DisplayPort 1.4 and USB 4, which can go even higher. So 3 displays in total, and the USB 4 supports power and display, working just fine with my USB-C monitor. Finally, there are a couple of USB 2 ports. The MediaTek card inside is capable of Wi-Fi 6E and provides Bluetooth. Oh, and just like the few Minisforum units before it, this one has an annoyingly bright blue power LED. Speaking of annoying, let's open it. These glued on rubber feet are the strongest I've encountered yet. Get the lube out. Once you finally flick those suckers off, 4 screws and pry open the bottom lid, which is also held on tightly. Oh, and watch out for the fan cable. Alright, so we've got 2 M.2 Gen 4 slots, and underneath the main one is the M.2 wireless card. Since there's no barebones option available, all the minis come with Windows 11 Pro, and a malware scan came up clean. Unfortunately, the latest Ubuntu does not have a driver for the Wi-Fi in this mini. Apart from that, it works okay. Alrighty then. AMD started to catch up to Intel in single-core performance with the 7000 series, and the UM760 is pretty close to the other higher-end 7000 CPUs. The other value option I've reviewed recently is the GMK M7 from the 6000 series, which is substantially behind in this metric. In multi-core, I didn't expect the UM760 Slim to trade blows with the 8-core AMD Minis, but it's not far behind the M7 at all, even when it's in performance mode. Next, we check out Geekbench with single core, where it does very well, and it's even ahead of the M7 in multi-core. How about that? And the UM760 does beat the M7 in video encoding, which is basically a multi-core workload. It does the same in AV1. So it's a very capable performer on the CPU side, even with 2 less cores. The 7000 series introduced AV1 hardware video encoding, which offloads the work to the integrated graphics, and the UM760 is the slowest of this bunch. Unlike Intel's QuickSync, 10-bit AV1 is not supported. We haven't looked at the Radeon 760M graphics before. It's a bit behind the previous generation flagship 680M found in the M7. The 680M is 10% faster in DX11 and pretty much identical in DX12 TimeSpy. However, in the newer DX12 Steel Nomad benchmark, the M7 is almost 9% faster. Let's see how well the UM760 holds up against a Ryzen 9 from the previous generation. First up is Counter-Strike 2, and it's a tie with almost identical results. League of Legends is a clear win for the Ryzen 9.
Strength above all.
Both minis are close in Valorant, though it looks like the UM760 has a slight edge. If we take the variability of an esports game and the different map into account, it's likely a tie. Another tie in Dota 2. A slight edge for the previous gen in Forza Horizon 5.
Follow that car! Past me!
Ghost of Tsushima has a 10% improvement over the UM760 we saw in the 3D Mark benchmark. Same with Cyberpunk. And again with Robocop. Both do poorly in Hellblade 2 without FSR upscaling, but the UM760 has a small win.
You should not have come here, child.
This dark land, it pushes back.
We got a War Ragnarok, we're back to over a 10% victory for the previous gen. While Space Marine 2 is a tie. CPU performance is the most important for emulation, and the UM760 does really well, winning both head-to-head tests. So, the newer generation mid-range Ryzen performs very similarly to the previous gen flagship in games. It's about 10% slower in some GPU-heavy titles. The UM760 can also handle a USB 4 external graphics enclosure if you want to game that way. I'm using my Ryzen Core Xe GPU with an RTX 3070. Moving on to audio production. Latency Mon checks if you'll have any dropout issues, and this mini passes easily, even with Cinebench running in the background at the same time. Video editing at 4K in Adobe Premiere is also pretty good. I'm jumping across the timeline, and there's little lag. The Bluetooth range on this mini is the best of the Minisforum units I've tested so far using an audio speaker. It also passed the Wi-Fi test at 12 meters or 39 feet with no network connection issue notifications playing Valorant. The 3D Mark storage benchmark has the Minisforum Kingston drive as the top performer from the limited dataset. On startup, you can mash the delete key to get into the BIOS. Click Setup. By default, the integrated graphics is only 2GB allocated. I recommend changing this to 3 or 4GB depending on whether you plan to game on it. In advanced ACPI settings, you'll find Wake on LAN. Hardware monitor doesn't allow changing the fan curve. AMD CBS FCH common options has AC power loss options, and that's pretty much it. Idle power draw on this Mini is low. Maximum power draw is similar to the 8-core 7000 series Minis. The CPU temperature hits a maximum that is above average compared to the competition, as is the fan noise, which under a full core load matches the GM-K-Tech M7 in performance mode. SSD temp is fine and not a problem with the cooling provided. With all that out of the way, it's conclusion time. The price is decent for a mid-range Mini with a 1TB SSD drive. It performs well, similar to a previous gen AMD Ryzen flagship. For value option, I'm very happy to see a compact external power brick included. However, Minisforum no longer offers a bare bones option on its website. Port selection is a bit slim. Oh, I see what I did there. Overall, a pretty good Mini PC at its US price of $320, where it holds up against most of the competition. As always, affiliate links are down in the video description, and anything you buy helps keep this channel afloat. Oh, and if you want a serious performance Mini PC, there's a Minisforum Atom-Man G7 PT, which has a very powerful CPU and a dedicated GPU. You can find the review right here. Cheers!